What is up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 2 of The Iron Show. My name is David.
Hiya, I am Daniel.
This is Daniel, my brother. We are both the owners of Iron Apparel. Iron Apparel is a lifestyle clothing brand that is built on Proverbs 27:17. Just as iron sharpens iron, so one person does to another. Basically, what that means is, in simple terms, we are all pieces of iron and we have the ability to sharpen each other, to make each other better. So our logo, if you're watching the video footage on YouTube, awesome. If you're not, you won't be able to see this, but our logo, as you know, is two pieces of iron sharpening each other in the shape of the letter I. We like to view it in the top half of the logo represents personal growth. So that's like personal development, becoming the sharpest version of yourself. And then the bottom piece of metal represents you sharpening the world. That is contribution, you contributing to making the world a better place, using your skills, talents, abilities, the things that you are good at, that you've become good at, to make the world a better place. We feel like that is the message that is missing in the marketplace right now with all these clothing companies, all these brands. Everybody's focused on becoming the best version of yourself, but nobody is focused on, the aspect of actually contributing to the world and helping others out. And so we feel like that's what's missing. That's what our brand's about. Guys, if you want more information on that, we basically
did a whole podcast on that before. That was our first episode. So if you haven't checked that out, check that out. And for those of you that did, thank you very much for the support. We actually got an overwhelming amount of support on that. So
it was awesome to see kind of some of the messages that came through were really personal, especially to Daniel, some of his friends, and from people that maybe we wouldn't have expected to hear from. So that was super awesome. Thank you guys for being super loyal. And for those of you that watched, we are working on Apple Podcasts. So we will notify you guys through Instagram, through Facebook, and then we're working on our email marketing. So if you're subscribed to our email list, you'll get that update as well. If you're not, then subscribe to that email list so that you get all the updates as we send them out. But Apple Podcasts is just a lot more thorough. They take a lot more time to review your podcast. We've been waiting, many days now for that to come back.
I submitted like a week ago.
So as soon as we hear that back, that audio is going to be up, and that's just going to be one more, avenue that you can take to listen to us. So anyway, so it's available right now on Spotify and YouTube, and then we'll let you guys know when we're up on Apple and probably down the road SoundCloud and some of those other smaller communities. But Apple, YouTube, and Spotify are the primary ones we're going for. So anyway, guys, what we're here to talk to you about today is
Theodore Roosevelt.
And his quote that our new collection is based off of. So we've got a really cool collection coming to you guys this coming Monday, Columbus Day, the 14th, October 14th, from 12 o'clock Mountain Standard Time to 12 o'clock Mountain Standard Time on Tuesday, the 15th. These will be available. It's going to be available for 24 hours. You go to our website and you can buy anything from this collection, which will include a men's t-shirt, a women's t-shirt, and then our unisex performance polyester hoodie that Daniel's wearing. I'm wearing the men's tee, obviously.
David actually made me switch my hoodie to wear this one, but now that I'm wearing it, I don't want to take it off because this hoodie is super comfortable.
They are like the softest. So our Iron Sharpens Iron hoodies are made on, a different hoodie that's kind of a really super duper soft, comfy, cozy blend. And these ones are like a performance moisture wicking, just awesome material. So we really freaking, this is my favorite shirt to wear. So super excited about it. The collection is called the Dare Greatly collection, and it is based off of Theodore Roosevelt's quote, "The man in the arena." So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Basically, anytime we come out with a new collection, I'm the one who designs all of our apparel and comes up with all of the, graphics and everything that then gets screen printed on our garments. And my goal is the things that inspire me, the things that impact me, the things that encourage me and motivate me. I want to have all of that feed and channel into the designs of our apparel. And it's always something that I'm really extremely passionate about and something that I want to just relay that message. It's like, I'm super passionate about it. It's on my heart. This is like my favorite design that we've made so far. It means a lot to me. And so why not make a podcast episode where we share that information with you guys so that you know where we're coming from when we come up with these designs. So that's what we're going to do. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So
first, we want to give everyone a brief introduction to Theodore Roosevelt, essentially, and kind of give him a breakdown of a little bit of the history behind him and what may have possibly inspired this quote. And then we're going to kind of cover the quote and systematically go through it a bit and decipher why it's important to us and how it can be applied to everyone's life.
Absolutely. So the first thing we're going to focus on is Theodore Roosevelt. Basically, because in order to really understand the gravity of this quote and like the application and just kind of the context of it, it's important to understand who said it. What was the caliber of the person that said this? What was that person about? What was important to him? What actions did he take? And I mean, basically, Theodore Roosevelt was, I'm looking on my desktop right now at, if you guys want to get a little bit more, we're going to cover the highlights of Theodore Roosevelt's life and talk about who he was in a broad aspect. But a great podcast episode that I had listened to was Andy Frisella. You guys know Andy is my boy. If you don't know who he is, Google him. He has an amazing podcast called the MFCEO Project. But this past 4th of July, I was down in Abilene, Texas, and he released a podcast episode that was called Pure Action: What Makes America and You Truly Great, with Andy Frisella. And it was an episode all about Theodore Roosevelt. And he wound up talking about this quote toward the end, but he really just highlighted the fact that Theodore Martin was a man of action. I mean,
you said Theodore Martin again.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so this is not, so I guess we'll just fill you guys in. Yesterday we recorded this podcast and we got all the way to the end of it, and we realized that our video feed was not recording because someone had called my phone and it cut off the video right in the middle of it. So yeah, but yesterday, man, I keep making the same mistake. A little bit of background. I just got done with a 4-year career in the active duty Army, but before that, in order to commission, I had to do ROTC when I was in college. And I had a classmate who, his dad was actually a 2-star general in the Army, who was in charge of the 2nd Infantry Division, which if you've ever been stationed over in Korea, you probably fell under 2ID. But anyway, when I was in college, his son, Theodore Martin, which, you know, funny, I wound up, our senior year, he wound up being nominated and selected to be the cadet, battalion command sergeant major, and I was the cadet battalion commander or whatever. So we worked like hand in hand throughout that semester or whatever. And he's still in the Army now and super awesome guy. But yeah, it's just so funny. Every time I think about Theodore Roosevelt, as we've been preparing for this podcast, I keep slipping and saying that. So anyway, Theodore Roosevelt, basically what characterizes him was that he was a man of pure action. Right. He was a bold, brash individual who was not afraid of what other people thought. He was not afraid of limitations. He was not afraid of obstacles. And he was willing to basically stick to his gut and follow his heart regardless of the situation, because that's what he believed in and that's what he was going to get done. And when his opinion or viewpoint or ideals changed, then so did his actions. And just an awesome individual. So as you guys know, he was a president of the United States. He was the 26th president of the United States. And he's basically viewed as one of the top 5 presidents that our country has ever had. Mm-hmm. His face is carved permanently in the stone of Mount Rushmore, along with George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and Abraham Lincoln. So when you think about, the type of person that this was, I mean, he definitely, for your face to be carved into the side of a mountain, you've got to be a pretty profound individual.
Yeah, for your body or face to be carved in stone at any moment in time, anywhere, you have to be pretty important, I think.
Yes, absolutely. So basically, a couple of things about him. We're not going to cover everything, but kind of the stuff that stuck out to Daniel and I. Yeah. Number one, he was born as a sickly child with debilitating asthma, but he was able to overcome this. Basically, his dad didn't really show a lot of sympathy to him and basically said, Theodore, like, these are the cards that you were dealt, and you're either going to succumb to it or you're going to overcome it. And so he devoted himself to exercise, fitness. He wound up becoming a boxer, lifting weights, and he was able to kind of overcome his asthma at a young age by being an athlete. And not only was he an athlete, he was also an intellect. He would find himself when he was young out in nature all the time. He studied birds. He studied wildlife. He got into taxidermy at a very young age. And thus learned, the anatomy of wildlife and and these are things that would kind of shape him in the future. He wound up being a huge time conservationist. When he was the president, he introduced measures to basically, create what we now know as the national forests of acres and acres and acres, hundreds of thousands of acres of protected land. But a lot of that started at a young age. He wound up becoming basically a hero in the Spanish-American War, where he, was, when he was younger, kind of one of the things that you were highlighting was he experienced a lot of hardship, basically when he first had a child.
Well, so he got married to his wife. Obviously, he got her pregnant over time. She died in child labor. And that was, I believe that was after he went to Harvard. Yeah. So he had already gone to Harvard, lost his wife, super, super traumatic. I can't imagine experiencing anything like that. And so his course of action was to move to North Dakota and go basically be a cowboy and live off the land.
Yeah.
So
to kind of like find himself.
Yeah. He wanted to go figure out who he actually was and how he was going to overcome this. And that, I think that's important to note because a lot of the people that knew him during his time in Harvard kind of viewed him as like a cocky asshole almost. He was very stuck in his ways. He
was an athlete. He was a boxer. He had a chip on his shoulder.
So he was badass.
Yeah.
Just plain and simple. But something they said in the documentary that we watched is he often found himself conflicted with the fact that he was the student and not the professor.
Yeah.
So
he
definitely
basically
just a big
thought
chip.
He knew more than the professors at Harvard, which is like
so big chip on his shoulder would be described as a little cocky and arrogant. And then throughout his time in North Dakota, he started to find more of an understanding and a relationship with humans and with wildlife. And I think that's kind of an important thing to recognize is that he had to take the time to be alone and isolate himself to really figure himself out
and to like appreciate humanity, you know, and that, I mean, he would have kind of been an incomplete person. He probably would not have gone on to do all the amazing things that he did because
no, absolutely not.
When you are just a hard ass, you've got this hard exterior, hard life, basically hard, cold heart, it's almost like at least the most impactful men that I've ever been around are like these tough, rugged, could beat your ass in basically any competition or whatever, but then they have a soft heart and they care
just
about
gentle
others.
giants.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that kind of his quote about like speak softly, but carry a big stick and you will go far. I mean, that pretty much, like say very little, but be ready if, the wolf's ever at the door, you're going to answer. And, I mean, that basically summarizes who he was. So that's super cool. He wound up, so he then, because of his experience being a cowboy, he was great on a horse and was able to lead a cavalry unit that became known as the Roosevelt's Rough Riders, basically through only 3 months, kind of a short period.
3 months of combat.
Spanish-American War.
Which I also don't, it just must have been a different time back then because he was essentially a civilian. He was like the deputy of the police or the head of the police or something along those lines. And then ended up being a lieutenant colonel in the Navy because he got appointed to be the assistant secretary of the Navy.
Yeah. And time. I think like during, times of war, it's, battlefield promotions. And honestly, I think to be the secretary of the Navy, you don't have to have been, it's really weird. Like the secretary of the Army, he's not the secretary of the Army anymore. Mark T. Esper, I believe is his name nowadays, but he was the secretary of the Army and he actually came out and talked to us while we were at Fort Carson. But he's a civilian now as a secretary of the Army. Fortunately for him, he was like active duty for like 4 to 8 years, I think. And then he was in the reserves and wound up becoming a lieutenant colonel in the reserves and then like got out and was a civilian. And then he became the secretary of the Army. So like the secretaries of the branches, I think are civilians and now he's the SecDef, but it's kind of weird that like
I digress.
I think like the senior ranking individual in the military branches is usually a civilian, which is just like, and sometimes it's like, really, guy? Like, So, but Mark Esper was a legit, and now he's the I think he's the SecDef now because I think he's the guy that replaced freaking what's his name?
What's his name?
Mad Dog Mattis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah.
That was. Yeah, let's not get into
Sad day
that.
in the military.
Anyway.
Yeah. Let's not think about that. Okay, so anyway, so where were we? So yeah, so he came back a hero in the Spanish-American War,
Well,
and
so
then
where I was going with that was he became the Assistant Secretary of the Navy, and then he volunteered to go be in war. He realized that what he was doing politically was not enough, and so he volunteered.
And again,
himself.
like that just illustrates
Yeah.
like this guy, you know, he did throughout his life what he thought was the best, and then the second that some circumstance changed, he was willing to change and be like, nope, you know what? The nation's at war. I need to be there. I
Right.
don't need to be here.
And this is,
you know?
I don't know how many kids he had at the time, but at the end of his life, he had 6 kids and a wife.
Yeah.
So he had a
More
wife
than
and children
likely,
at this
yeah.
time. And he was like, dude, I'm going to make a
That's
badass
crazy.
unit and we're going to
that's
go
like
kick
those
ass.
guys that like you hear about the freaking heroes that right after 9/11, like people that had successful careers
Yeah.
that left like successful careers with families and children and homes and all this stuff and enlisted in the military like the next day because they just felt a certain type of way and they
Yeah.
were passionate and they were men and women of action. So wound up coming back from that, and basically the next thing that happened was he was selected to be the vice presidential candidate for McKinley. McKinley ended up becoming the president, and shortly into his initial term in office, he was actually assassinated. And so Theodore Roosevelt kind of struggled when he was selected as the vice president because back then, especially, the vice president just didn't really carry much weight. And so it was kind of like he wanted to be the man in the arena. He wanted to be the guy in the spotlight, and he kind of felt like, I'm the vice president. I'm not really doing much.
Yeah.
But then he actually, at very short notice, was tapped on the shoulder and was like, hey, you're the president now. You know, McKinley was assassinated. You're the president now. And he stepped into that role, and the nation fell in love with him, basically.
Mhm.
And so then, you know, 3 years later or whatever, when the next election came up, I think in 1908, I want to say, he was elected full term. Yeah, 1904. So 1904, he was up for re-election, and basically it was his time to like, you kind of like fell into your first presidency, and you were kind of like, you know,
Now
people
I'm
would
gonna
say,
find
hey,
out.
you didn't legitimately get elected or whatever. They weren't electing you. They were electing McKinley.
Yeah.
And now it was his moment of, all right, I got to prove that, you know, I'm worthy of being in this office. And he went out and campaigned, and he won by the largest margin in.
Yeah, it was the largest popular vote of history at that time.
Yeah.
So like that was like hands down 100% the United States wants you to be the president. Like
Yeah.
not 51-49. It was huge. I don't know the exact number.
Yeah,
he
but the
swept
largest
the
to that
floor.
point in history. And with the Electoral College, it was the same thing. He swept it. So, yeah, and then had a successful presidency. And then I believe, I don't know if at that time they had not yet instilled you can only run for 2 terms, or if his first term didn't count against him because.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure.
But anyway, he wound up running for a 3rd term. And basically he had, you know, he was a conservative president and a Republican president and a Republican candidate, but he didn't fully agree with all of the really right-leaning policies and ideals and things like that. And so he kind of stopped identifying with that and actually lost the nomination, like the Republican primary nomination, and he was not selected as the Republican candidate. Taft was. And so he stormed out of the Republican National Convention and basically was like, all my followers, go outside. We're starting our own party. And they all followed him out of the building. He gave a phenomenal speech, and they wound up naming the party the Bull Moose Party after everybody called him a bull moose. That was like his nickname because obviously, you know, that's the kind of person that he was.
Yeah.
If you've ever encountered a moose out in the wild, you would know what that means.
Huge.
They are massive and they will kill you. They're not like a deer or an antelope or even an elk. Like they are beasts, and yeah, they kill people. Like people die from freaking being attacked by
completely
moose.
off topic. Did you see that video of I think it was a rhino or something? It was like, I don't think it was a petting zoo. I think it was like a national park, and there was just a big ass animal, and a little child went up and tried to pet it, and it just like yeeted her like 20 feet into the sky. Like, yeah,
Did she survive?
I think so. animals will fuck you up. Don't
Yeah.
don't play
Well,
games with
that makes me
BS
think
animals.
about a picture in that documentary. They showed a picture of like Theodore Roosevelt was an avid hunter and outdoorsman, so he went on all these exotic hunts. And there was a picture where they, I don't know, for whatever reason, they were hunting like black rhinoceros or whatever, but there was a black, like he was just, there were so many stories about all the badass stuff that this guy did,
Yeah.
but there was a photo of a black rhinoceros like at his feet, and he was like, it came within 13 paces of me.
Oh
or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Like,
It came within 13 paces, and
Yeah.
he shot it down while it was charging at
that
him.
is
It was
crazy.
just
And
"Ah!"
you can just imagine like the type of person that stands there and confronts a 4,000 pound
Yeah.
black rhinoceros. So anyway, yeah, total awesome dude. Formed his own party, and basically, the media said there's no way you're going to win this election because you're the third party candidate, and you, in your best case scenario, you're going to just split the Republican vote in half. And that's what wound up happening. But I mean, he gave a valiant effort, and it was a respectable campaign. And I mean, it just goes to show that like he was the type of person that wasn't just, many people would have just folded, but he was like, no,
Yeah.
I believe in this. This is what, is on my heart. This is what I'm going to follow and do. So he did that. And then, I mean, there's the list of accomplishments goes on and on and on. Basically, some of the biggest ones, he won the Nobel Peace Prize. He was the president that oversaw the construction of the Panama Canal, which was the largest construction engineering achievement in the world of that time. I mean, it was comparable to like, building the Great Wall of China or something.
Yeah.
It was a huge accomplishment.
Totally went over Congress's head to do that, but we'll get into that later when we're dissecting the
Yeah.
quotes.
One of the other things that was really interesting about him was there was a point in time where I think when he was in politics, I think it was the governor of Montana or something like that, but took him out on a hunt to go bear hunting. And I think multiple people on the trip had killed a bear, and he was kind of feeling a little bit lacking. And so his assistant, or his team of assistants, we don't really know how this happened.
Yeah, we talked about this yesterday, and I'm still in the same mind frame of, dude,
What is
how
going on?
the fuck do you catch a bear with your bare hands?
Basically, his assistants caught a wild bear, which honestly, I mean, they're more, respectable. In this
you can
scenario.
catch a bear with your hands,
Yeah.
dude.
I don't know if they caged it. I don't know if they drugged it. I don't know what happened if they imported one from the zoo. Anyway, what wound up happening was there was a bear tied to a tree, and they said, hey, Theodore Roosevelt, you need to get your own bear.
We caught you a
We
bear.
caught you one. You just need to shoot it, and then we can mount it and make an awesome rug out of it or whatever, and you're going to be just like everybody else.
Yeah.
And he said, which, maybe doesn't come as that much of a surprise.
I'm not going to shoot
But
the bear
honestly,
tied
I
to
mean,
a
if this
tree.
happened, like it was probably like, more acceptable or whatever in the circumstances.
Well,
I
and
mean, like the
especially back in
context.
that time
Yeah,
frame.
definitely.
He killed over like 290 species of animals or
Yeah,
some
he was
bizarre.
because
yeah,
he was a
huge-
taxidermist.
yeah.
His mansion was covered with horns and heads
Yeah.
and antlers.
It was a different time.
It was crazy. Yeah. Super. Anyway, he refused to shoot the bear. And he was like, you guys, like, this is wrong. This is immoral. This is crazy. I'm not shooting this bear. And he didn't do it. And that story wound up kind of capturing the hearts of the media. And they ran a bunch of, magazine and newspaper articles and photos. And the story went around the country, and people fell in love with the story. And there was a toy maker that saw a political cartoon that someone had drawn about this story that depicted a little, the bear as like a little cartoon, cute bear. And the toy maker decided to make a stuffed animal bear and called it Teddy's Bear. And that wound up, leading to the creation of their teddy bears.
If you
are
haven't
still
picked
around
up
today.
on what we're
So-
talking about yet, then
So basically, if you learn nothing from this podcast, you now know where teddy bear, the name teddy bear, and the concept of a stuffed animal bear wound up originating from.
yeah, we taught you something.
Yes.
Maybe.
So, and then, I mean, so.
Yeah, so let's get into the quote. I think what we really want to do is we don't want to. It's troublesome because some of it is somewhat repetitive, so we don't want to like say the same thing we've already said once. But it is a very impactful quote, and it's very relatable to both of our lives, and I think to everyone's lives if they've been through any type of trial before. So this is really meaningful to us. That's why we put it on a shirt.
Yeah, I mean, it basically, for me, it with Iron Apparel, I mean, it captures exactly where we're at. And this is like a rallying cry for us when we get discouraged. Because, I mean, dude, trying to start a business, leaving the military, or even while you're in the military and telling people like, oh yeah, I'm going to start a t-shirt company. Oh yeah, just like everybody else. I mean, how many, veteran-owned apparel companies are there? And it's almost laughable in some circumstances. But for you to be willing to put yourself out there, I mean, this quote, that's exactly what this is about. That's exactly what this whole paragraph is about. So the quote says, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat." So the first line of this quote is, it's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. Basically what that's saying is, and as we've been kind of like preparing for this podcast, we've been looking into all sorts of stuff that relates to this quote. And I mean, I can think of dozens of, memes and images and videos that come up that kind of like illustrate this point. But some of them that really stuck with me was, nobody has ever made a statue out of a critic. Nobody ever remembers the critics. People remember the people who do things, the doers. There's that meme where there's the 3 lines that people are waiting in, and the thinker line, there's like 1,000 people waiting in the line of a thinker. There's a sign at the front of the line that says thinkers. And then the second line in the middle is talkers. And that's a little bit shorter, but there's like hundreds of people in that line. And then there's a line all the way on the right that says doers, and there's like 2 people in the line. And I feel like that's so true. I feel like the people who actually make a difference in the world and actually build success and actually impact people are the doers. Anybody who's making anything out of it, doers, anybody who's going to make anything of their life is a doer. And I feel like 90% of the population are the critics who just want to talk and criticize.
Well, and not to take shots at anyone, but a perfect illustration of this is look at an NFL football stadium. You have how many people playing in the actual stadium and how many thousands of people watching.
That's totally true. Yeah.
And that's just in the stadium. That's not on television.
Yeah. So, and they say the harshest criticisms come from the cheapest seats. And I mean, I feel like that is so true. I feel like when we used to play high school sports, and you would always hear these crazy parents yelling out at the refs, yelling out at the coaches, yelling out.
Wrestling moms are crazy.
Yeah, and it's like, you could do no better. You see the armchair quarterbacks that are at their house wearing Tom Brady's jersey, and he's yelling at the screen trying to tell Tom Brady how off that pass was. And it's just like, dude,
I have so many opinions on that, but I will hold them back.
So basically the point of this statement is, it's not the critic who counts. If you're the type of person who's sitting on the sidelines, who's being a spectator, who's watching, then your opinion really, in the grand scheme of things, I hate to say it, sorry to break it to you, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
What matters is the people that are out there on the field. They're the only ones that can influence where that game is going. You know what I mean? So that's the point of this. So if you are the type of person who's stuck right now, you're sitting on the sidelines, you're in the bleachers, you're not in the game, have the courage to get into the game. And B, if you're in the game and you're dealing with the people who are being critical of you, I would tell you, those that mind don't matter, and those that matter don't mind.
Right.
I mean, I think it's Dr. Seuss that said that, but it's so true. The people who actually care about you, who actually matter in your life, are not going to be the ones that are criticizing you. The people that are going to be criticizing you and knocking you down are like, move on. It doesn't matter. They don't matter.
As long as your intentions are true, which we'll get into.
Cover. But yes. So as long as what you're doing is good, and if you succeed will make the world a better place, then yeah.
Right.
So the second part of the quote is then the credit belongs to the man who is actually, and this is man or woman, the person who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. And basically what that point illustrates is that the first step is mustering up the courage and, the willingness to be vulnerable and step into the arena.
Right.
And the second step is inevitably you're going to get punched in the mouth. You're going to get dust in your face. You're going to get sweat, dripping down your forehead into your eyeballs. You're going to get bloody.
It's an arena.
It's the arena. You're there, you are there, and failure is a part of it. They talk about in the military, the first thing, that goes out the door as soon as you make contact with the enemy is the plan. You spend all this time coming up with a plan, mustering up the courage to get out there on the battlefield. You have this perfect plan that you're going to execute. And the first thing that goes out the window, as soon as you make contact with the enemy, is that plan. And then it's, all right, how are we going to adjust? How are we going to rise to the occasion? Where's our training is going to kick in, and we're going to boom, 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 boom. We're going to deal with these failures. We're going to continually improve. We're going to keep striving again and again and again until we achieve the victory. It's the same thing.
Mike Tyson said the exact same thing. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Exactly.
You watch all the footage. You break down everything they do. If they're orthodox or non-orthodox, you spend so much time watching their fight footage and calculating your fight plan for them. But if you're not used to it and you go out there and you get punched in the face really freaking hard, guess what? You're not thinking about your game plan anymore. You're thinking, holy shit, I just got punched in the face and it really hurts.
Exactly. So this is all about just knowing and expecting that you're going to get roughed up, that you're going to fail. And I mean, dude, I cannot relate it more to Iron Apparel. If you are struggling right now with trying to come up with the perfect plan and thinking that you can think through all of the issues that you're potentially going to have and like mitigating or dealing with all the problems before they're going to arise just in coming up with the perfect plan, then that's never going to happen, because as soon as you get started, like my advice to you would be just get started, because as soon as you get started, that plan's going to change anyway. So just get started, get out into the arena, and you can start receiving the feedback. You can start responding to getting beat up, roughed up a little bit,
trial
and
by
make
fire.
adjustments, trial by fire, and make adjustments as you go. If you're already in the arena and you already had the courage to take action and now you're not being as successful as you want, and this can be if you are overweight and you're trying to, get fit, and maybe inevitably, if you're an overweight person and you go to the gym, you should expect that there's going to be some asshole that's going to look at you a certain type of way as if you don't belong there. And you just need to be ready for that, because people suck. Or you're going to have the failure of, hey, I'm doing really well in my diet, and all of a sudden, man, I had a really bad day. I totally cheated on my whole diet. And instead of reverting back to zero and going and getting out of the arena and sitting back on the bleachers, no, respond to it. Pick yourself back up, dust yourself off, wipe the sweat off your forehead, bandage your wounds, and get back in the game. It's with your fitness journey. It's with if you're trying to start a business.
Yeah, the arena is symbolic.
The arena is anywhere that you just got into the military and you're trying to you're trying to have a successful military career, but you're far away from home. You have a command that maybe, is rough, or you're in a job that's rough, or hey, you just found out you're deploying in 3 months or whatever it may be. But wherever you are, whatever the arena is that you're in, just expect that these failures are going to be a part of it. Embrace the failure and recognize that, the line in there that says, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, you can't accomplish anything. You can't have success in the end without failure being a part of that recipe. Thomas Edison with the light bulb.
You find through failure, you find 1,000 ways not to do something. Exactly. And then you find the one way.
Thomas Edison said, I have not failed. I've just found one more way that won't work. I found 10,000 ways that won't work. And that's the way that you have to view failure. You have to be willing to learn from it and allow it to make you better, and just keep falling up the stairs.
It's a mindset, man. Like you really have to put yourself in the mindset when you are committing yourself to doing something challenging that you haven't done before. you have to put yourself in the mindset that you are accepting and opening yourself to failure because you're going to fail at
And that's
like it's inevitable. You're going
part
to
of
fail.
being in the arena.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, you're gonna get punched in the mouth. You're gonna get your ass kicked. It is you should be excited to fail because what the hell are you gonna learn if you don't fail?
Yeah.
You can't.
You only learn. Yeah. Nobody really learns. Nobody learns as much when they win as when they lose.
Yeah, you can go your whole life winning and learn nothing. Look at Abraham Lincoln. He had so countless failures before he was ever elected president, and I think that's what shaped him into the man that he became.
I think anybody that's successful, and so many people become successful, and you look at their life and you just think that they were born into it and that they were an overnight success.
Everyone has
And
a
if
badass
you
story behind them.
If you take the magnifying glass or the microscope and start peeling back the layers of that onion and going back through their life, it is riddled with failures.
Yeah.
And I mean, so I think people oftentimes try to give themselves the excuse of like, well, I just wasn't born to be great like these other people. And so
No,
when they
maybe
have
you just
failure
haven't
in their
failed
life,
enough.
it's like, no, like they
You
failed
just live in a
too. And
coop-
you're the same
Yeah.
as them. And you've just got to recognize that they had failures just like you have failures, but they dealt with them. And it was the meaning and the lessons that they took from those failures. And they had the courage to stay in the arena despite the blood and sweat and tears.
No.
So that's the second part of this quote is number one. The first part is have the courage to not be the critic and to get off the sideline into the arena. The second step is have the courage to stay in the arena despite your failures and shortcomings, because you cannot be successful without failure being a part of your story. And then the third part of this quote is, and on that second part, sorry, real quick before we move on, I did want to hit on David Goggins real quick, how that applies to that quote. So David Goggins, guys, if you don't know who he is, go follow. Most of you guys have probably already heard of him, but Navy SEAL, has a phenomenal story. Basically went from being 297 pounds overweight to becoming one of our nation's most elite warriors in the Navy SEALs. He is a black man, and less than 1% of Navy SEALs, I think, are African American. So that's a huge accomplishment for him. But he wound up being a war hero and then got out of the military and now has trained his body to run ultra marathons, which are races that are 100 miles or more. So just a phenomenal athlete. Some call him the toughest man on the planet, but people ask him, what can you do? Because most of his message is based around mental toughness. And so what can you do to prepare yourself best for Navy SEAL training, for example, or when there's going to be something that is difficult that you've got to make it through, or like a crucible in your life, what's the best way to mentally prepare for that? And what he says is, what he did for Buds, knowing that he was going to go into Hell Week, was he tried to put himself mentally into that situation before he got there. So he would, while he was training and preparing for it, he would think about, I'm going to be in Hell Week. I'm going to be freezing cold. The water's going to be freezing. My body's going to be frigid and shaking. I am going to have sand that has chafed my body so much to the point where I am bleeding. I'm going to have salt water getting into my wounds. I'm going to be extremely uncomfortable. I'm going to want to quit. I'm going to question why I'm there. I'm going to go want to ring that bell, but I'm not going to, because I want to be a Navy SEAL. And so when you get to that point, when you're in the middle of Hell Week and you're in that element of, oh shit, here it is. I'm in the sand. I'm bleeding. I got salt water coming into my wounds. I'm freezing. I'm shaking. I'm pissing my pants just to try to keep myself warm. But I knew I was going to be here. I have already thought about this. I knew I was going to be here. This is where I want to be. This is a necessary step in getting that trident pinned onto my chest. Yep. And so I'm not going to allow myself to go quit. Whereas the other guys that just all they think about when they're training is that moment of getting the trident pinned onto their chest. They don't make it because they didn't put themselves mentally into that situation of, so as soon as they get cold and freezing and bloodied and their bones are sore and breaking and fracturing, this sucks. I got to survive. I got to get out of this. And dude, it's amazing. There was one illustration that was drawn. I've been to Coronado. You've been to Coronado. Yeah. We've been out to Coronado Island where I used to go to school in San Diego. So we took a day trip one time out to Coronado and played volleyball on the beach. And there's a civilian beach that connects to the military beach and there's just a fence that separates them. So that you got the Navy SEALs training on one side, and you can see them in their classes and everything as they're going through Buds, running on the beach, getting into the water, carrying the lifeboats. And then right across the fence, you've got children and families that are playing on the beach. And it's amazing because you will literally have young men who have wanted to be Navy SEALs, who have dreamed of being a Navy SEAL their entire life, who are tough and rugged in the water, and it will feel like it is too cold for them to be there anymore, and they will get up and go ring the bell. And at the exact same time, you've got children that are less than a mile away that are building sandcastles and playing in that exact same water at that exact same temperature.
Yeah.
So it's just a mental thing. So how that connects to this is when you're in the arena, you basically just have to put yourself mentally, whatever your situation is, whether it's fitness, whether it's your career, you just have to know from the get-go and plan on these failures and this uncomfortable aspects of the journey being an element, and putting yourself into what's it going to feel like when people criticize me and call me fat? What's it going to feel like when my family makes fun of me for trying to, when you're at Thanksgiving dinner and you're like, no, actually I'm going to turn down, the rolls and the soda because I'm on a diet and I'm trying to lose weight, but you're still 350 pounds. They're going to laugh in your face.
Yeah.
But you have to have prepared for that, and you have to have, thought about I'm going to have criticism. I'm going to have failure.
If you don't put yourself in the position of knowing that you're going to fail and that you're going to be exposed to hardships, then you're going to crumble under them when they arise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to draw that comparison of that was a really gold nugget that I got from David Goggins of basically put yourself in that crappy situation before you get into it, so that when you get into it, you can be like, you know what? I've already thought I wanted to be here. I knew this was going to be part of it. I embrace it so I can get through it. This third part of this quote, guys, is, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best, that's the end of it, who spends himself in a worthy cause. Basically, guys, the important note that we wanted to, put out for this section is drawing the distinction to, many of you have probably read or seen Brene Brown's book, Daring Greatly. And I haven't read it. It might be the next book that I read. But we did research a little bit of it when we were getting ready to do this podcast because it kept coming up and we started looking into it. One of the main points, I read the summary of her book, and one of the main points that she makes out of the 3 points that she makes is vulnerability is basically, her argument is that vulnerability is like what it takes. But the way that she describes it is that vulnerability is basically neutral. It's not in and of itself. Vulnerability is not good or bad. Vulnerability is basically what she describes as the willingness to step into the arena. By being vulnerable, you are exposing yourself to criticism, to emotional damage, to possibly physical damage. That's the comparison in your life to stepping into the arena. And it's basically neither good or bad. So by the point basically that I want to make here is sometimes, and especially right now, I feel like the internet is full of people saying, be vulnerable, be vulnerable. That's the key to success.
Yeah, it's almost like we're idolizing weakness,
vulnerability. And well, if what you're devoted to, if what you're being vulnerable about, and you have the courage to step out and start talking about what you're about, but if at its core, that is not good, that is not coming from a pure place, if your intentions are actually not going to make the world a better place, if it's coming from a state of being manipulative or trying to deceive people, then it's basically your death is just going to be sped up. So the key point of this, third bullet is basically, the importance of devoting yourself to a worthy cause. And
which
I think
goes back to Theodore Roosevelt, because that's something that he held very dearly to him. He had his ideologies that throughout his life became more and more important towards humanity. He became a much better person throughout his timeline, and he cared about people more. And a great example of that is his children. He was actually a very, very outstanding father. That was like one of the most noted things about him. There was a lot of cartoons
and probably what
that
he viewed as one of his highest achievements.
Yeah, honestly, because actually his own father died when he was attending Harvard, and he said, "I will never know a greater man." Yeah. So I think that really set in stone for him. Like I have to be the same kind of father to my children that mine was to me. So he taught them all sorts of lessons. One of my favorites was that he had a very large house with a forest in the back of it, and they would have races with each other. He would get all of his kids, didn't matter what age they were, and they would race through the forest. And whenever they came across an obstacle, whether it be a tree falling down or a fence line or whatever, he taught them from basically the youngest age possible, you can either go over, under, or through your obstacle, but you can't go around it. And so to me, what that means is that he was very focused on teaching people what is right. And I think the hardest part about this quote, and the biggest thing we're going to have trouble with describing this, is that it's really hard to distinguish what's right and wrong for everyone else, because we know in our hearts what's right and wrong, but we can't tell everyone else what's right and wrong for them to do. But I think what we can give you is that I think you know in your heart when you do wrong.
Basically, everybody has a conscience, everybody has a heart,
Right.
And a soul. And as long as you truly believe in your heart that what you're doing is right and that it's going to end up making the world a better place, then basically that's going to give you the endurance and the courage and the persistence that you need to rely on to make it successful. Otherwise, if you don't truly believe it, or if you have doubts, or if you are skeptical about what you're doing because you think maybe it's, manipulative, like your conscious knows that, your subconscious knows that, and it's going to slowly start working against you, and you're not going to have the same drive and the same motivation and you're going to run out of energy in trying to pursue that. And so it's only the people, if you look at anybody who's truly built anything great throughout history, they are people who fully and completely believe in their cause and devote their life, because it gives them the energy they think about it all the time. They work around the clock for it. You look at Elon Musk. Again, let's not go. Okay, quick point. But basically, like, this guy, has enough money to where he could go do anything. And as the CEO of Tesla this past year, because of the way their stock performed and they had to meet certain manufacturing expectations, he moved. Most CEOs have a office space that's on the side of a building with a giant glass wall overlooking the ocean or the city or whatever. He moved his desk down to the bottom, to the end of the Model 3 Tesla assembly line, and worked at the end of the assembly line and slept there on his couch for like working 80-hour weeks. Crazy. So it's like the only way that you're a CEO that didn't believe in his company's mission or product would never do that.
No.
The only way that you have that type of energy and stamina is if you truly believe at your core, with every fiber of your being, that what you're doing is good and needs and has to be done. And that's what gives you that energy. So before you muster up the courage to step into the arena, find something that drives you like that and make sure that it's a worthy cause. And that's pretty much that bullet. So then the last bullet is who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Basically what this is saying is, just because you have the courage to get into the arena and stay in the arena does not always mean that you are going to experience that level of success that you're dreaming of. You might not get that gold trophy. You might not get exactly what you're shooting for.
Success is never guaranteed to you.
No, and success, honestly, in my opinion, never really gets accomplished. I really think that success is the pursuit of your full potential.
Yeah,
so
and that changes throughout your timeline.
Yeah, exactly. You make goals, you achieve them, and your target, your goals shift and get extended further and further down the line.
If you don't change your goals and you achieve your goals, then what?
Then you go sip margaritas on the beach for the rest of your life and get into all sorts of trouble and end up being super depressed and read about those people in the news all the time. Talked about Epstein last time.
Yeah. All right. Let's not go back.
So, but basically what this is saying is that there is dignity, there is success, there is respect, there is achievement in trying at something and even failing while you're daring greatly. Even if you don't win the Olympic gold medal, overcoming adversity, you know, overcoming your challenges, working towards something, devoting yourself to a worthy cause, and still coming up short is still honorable and respectable. And that's basically, I mean, this article that I was reading says basically Roosevelt believed that a man should not be judged by what he achieved, but by what he did. The process was what mattered. To Roosevelt, courage was the virtue that enabled men and women to try and struggle. And it basically is arguing we don't practice this anymore. Courage requires personal sacrifice, and it demands that you take the risk of failing, that the risk of failing is very possible. And it calls for you to have skin in the game. It's
Right.
much easier just to sit on the sidelines, to sit in the stands and be a spectator and to criticize and sneer at those who have the audacity to take the leap of faith across the chasm. But there's no meaning or fulfillment in sitting in the bleachers. Like we talked about at the beginning of this, nobody's ever built a statue of a critic. No critic
Right.
has ever accomplished anything that's truly great.
Well,
and so,
And I think the biggest takeaway for me is the cold and timid souls part. Because when you're talking about this, you're talking about the idea that when you put yourself out there and you experience being in the arena, even the idea of failure then changes. Well, even actually going through failure then changes your perspective for the rest of your life, because you will never wonder again. You know, it's like you hear it all the time with people that, you know, oh, I had a scholarship to a D1 college, but I decided to go do construction instead. So now my kid is doing football when he's 3 years old, and I make him go to every single practice. Like,
yeah.
Dude, it is important to push through the fear of failing and put yourself in the arena so that you can have the comfort of never wondering again for the rest of your life.
Yeah, because
even
there's
if you fail.
fulfillment in even knowing that, hey, I tried that, it wasn't for me, I didn't like it, that's
Right.
not what I meant to do, and then I move on to the next arena and jump into the next arena.
And that's what it's identifying, is that the people that don't do that and who allow themselves to be overcome with fear are the cold and timid souls.
Yeah, and that's basically, I mean, that's the perfect way. There's not a more perfect way to describe that type of person. I think we all, as you're listening to this, I think you can picture someone who's like this, who you would describe as cold and timid.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's nothing that I want to be the opposite of more than a cold and timid soul. It's like, even if I fail at what I'm doing, at least I want to have the courage to at least pursue it, at least give it my best effort. Because then when I am laying on my deathbed and, you know, getting ready to go meet and be with Jesus, I can look back on my life and be like, I tried everything I was meant to try. I devoted my life to a worthy cause. I tried and failed and tried and failed, and it got better every time. But I don't want to have a lot of great regrets when I'm laying on my deathbed. I don't want to be thinking back to, man,
Yeah.
I should have stepped into that arena, or I wonder what would have happened. I could have been a champion if I stepped in that arena.
I do
And
not want to die thinking what if.
Yeah.
That's like my biggest fear in life. Honestly, that is probably my largest fear in life of all time, is being on my deathbed, whatever that instance is, you know, however that comes. Oh God. But whatever that instance is, my biggest fear is my life flashing before my eyes and thinking back of, I was a bitch. I should have done that.
Yeah.
I was fearful, and I let my fear take me over.
Yeah. So guys, basically, if you're on the fence, if you're thinking about, if you're one of these people that, you know, graduate high school and you think about serving in the military, and then, I mean, I meet these people all the time because honestly,
I almost joined the army.
yeah, you meet a lot of people that are like, you know, if you're walking around out in uniform or whatever, they'll see you and they'll be like, thank you for your service. And you'll be like, oh, you know, my pleasure, whatever. And like, just gonna move on. And then they're like, you know, I almost got in, or I almost, you know, did this and that. And it's like, dude, you're gonna regret that for the rest of your life. You're gonna be telling every military person that you ever see, you're gonna tell them this story for the rest of your life. So why don't you just go join and see what it's about? And then, you know, take your boots off 4 years later and you can be like, yeah, I did it. It wasn't for me. I have some great experiences, whatever. But that analogy applies to anything that you're thinking about trying in your life. Go try it. Go jump into the arena and see if it's for you, because at least if you fail, you will have failed while daring greatly. And that is the point of this shirt. That's the point of this collection. For us with Iron Apparel, that's what it is. We're in the arena. We are daring greatly. We feel this burning in our hearts that, dude, we need
Yeah.
to make a brand that represents all these amazing things that we feel so passionately about. And whether we're able to build it into a, large multi-million-dollar company that's super successful, or we're on our deathbed still trying to figure out, like, oh man, we got to try this or that, like, we are going to continue this quote. We apply it to ourselves with Iron Apparel. Our faces are going to continue to be marred by dust and sweat and blood. We're going to have failure. We're going to have people criticize us. We're going to have people laugh behind our backs and think, oh my gosh, what are these guys doing? Why are you making a podcast? What are you doing designing these shirts and trying to put it out there? Dude, bring it on. I'm in the arena.
Dude, we fear this shit too. We go through this every day. We fight all the goddamn time. We feel this shit battle every day.
One of us, and it's great having a partner because you have someone to help bring you out of that state. Mm-hmm. But dude, the doubt is there when you put something out there and you don't get the response that you're thinking you're going to, or when you try something and it doesn't work out the way you think it's going to work out and it's back to the drawing board. I mean, the history of Iron Apparel is riddled with things like this. I started screen printing t-shirts in my college dorm room, and I had a fire smoke detector up on the ceiling that all the dorm rooms were connected. So if there was a fire in one dorm room, the entire building would go off and the sprinklers would go off, because it was in Southern California where they all have to have a fire system. So I put a plastic bag over my smoke detector, and I was in my dorm room in college trying to teach myself how to screen print. And obviously, I mean, that was where it began. And it's a story of, okay, how do I learn how to do this? And man, the shirts aren't turning out right. And man, we're only selling, one or two or whatever. And we're trying to figure it out. And then it was working with a screen print shop in San Diego. And then we outgrew him and moved to a bigger shop in Los Angeles. Yeah. And there were all sorts of things. And then I moved out to Korea, and you guys were in the military, active duty. And John was building his own company up in Denver. You were guarding nukes up in Montana, and Michael was learning how to fly F-18s out in California. And so we had to figure out the customer service piece. And then even when I got back stationed to Colorado, it was back to the drawing board. And okay, we let go of the screen printing shop in Los Angeles. Now we got to do it ourselves. How are we going to figure this out? Guys, it's like this with anything that you're going to try in your life, whether it's your fitness, whether it's a business, whether it's your career, whether it's your family, whether it's your marriage, whether it's being a parent, anything, it's going to be riddled with dust and sweat and blood. But you have to have the courage to get into the arena, to stay into the arena, and then know in your heart that as long as you're pursuing a worthy cause, whether you win or lose in the way that basically it's a win-win. You're gonna win either way. It just might be measured, it might not be what you are envisioning in your mind. In most cases, it's gonna be better than what you're envisioning in your mind. Everything in my life to this point has been that. I had these dreams when I was in high school of going to college and doing this and this and this, and everything has always turned out better than even the best vision that I had of it that I had come up with on my own. So, but even if it doesn't, materialize in the way that you think it's going to, or that you wanted it to, you're going to end up being victorious, because you're going to die that warrior. You're going to have that, you're going to respect yourself. You're going to be able to look in the mirror and like what you see, and like the person that you see, and respect the person that you see, because that person had the courage to follow their dreams.
Rather than feeling regret for the rest of your life.
Rather than looking back at this cold and timid soul that's staring you in the face, and you'll have to deal with that. All right, guys, so that pretty much sums it up. And real quick, before we head out, we just wanted to leave you guys with all the details for the release of the collection. So again, just to reiterate, coming out Monday, October 14th, 12 o'clock noon Mountain Standard Time. That's where we're located. You'll be able to order it for 24 hours. They'll be up on the website on like the main page. You'll be able to click right to it through the homepage. And then we'll have a countdown timer on the website just to remind you periodically throughout the day how much time you have left before we close at noon on the 15th. And then basically what we're going to do is right after the order period ends, we are going to collect all of the orders, and we're going to get to work on manufacturing these. So that includes ordering all of our blank garments, getting them in, and going through the entire setup process and screen printing process. It's really cool because each garment that you guys order is going to be individually printed by our team here in Colorado Springs, which is awesome. They do a phenomenal job. We print with entirely water-based inks, which print into the fibers of the fabric, and they don't crack like all of the other apparel companies that I know. They screen print with plastisol ink, which is plastic that lays on top of the fabric. It's super heavy and it cracks when you wash it. And then the other cool thing that we do is we call our ink a molten metal ink. So we actually found a way to include real metal into our ink and print that onto the shirt. So the whole theme of everything we do here is iron sharpens iron. And so we thought it would be like what cooler way to express that part of the brand than printing metal on our t-shirts. Right. So as far as I know, we're the only brand that prints metal on their shirts. And that goes in line with everything that we do with the packaging. The stickers that we include with the shirts are printed on a brushed aluminum foil. The hang tags have a metallic finish to them. The pens that we use to write our thank you cards for each order have metallic ink in the pens. The decals that we use are cut out of metallic vinyl. Right. Everything supports that theme of iron sharpens iron. So we really believe in our product. We love the end result. I would not wear and sell anything that's not premier quality. So we're just super excited, really passionate about it. We're really excited for you guys to be able to pick them up and get your hands on them. But the part of that information that's critical to you is knowing that it's going to take us our goal is to have everything printed within 2 weeks is kind of what we're expecting. So we've got to wait for all the garments to get there. Then we got to set up the job and then we got to print everything. Our goal is to have everything printed and ready to go by October 25th. And that's when we'll begin shipping all the orders out. And the goal is to get you guys delivered everything on your doorstep by November 1st. So you just got to be patient with us. And we want to make sure that you clearly understand that before you order so that you're not disappointed.
Specifically, that's only for these limited edition shirts. Everything else that we sell is we have stocked inventory.
If you see this and you want to grab something off our website because you want to support us, we super appreciate it. If you order it, everything else that's on the website, we package and ship same day, and you'll get it within 2 to 3 business days. It goes out priority mail, first class, gets there very quickly. So everything else on the website is available now. That instant gratification, we totally understand that in today's culture of 2-day shipping from Amazon and now 1 day or 2 hour. Someone's going to ride a bicycle and throw it on your doorstep within an hour.
Reaper drone to your house and drop it right on your front door.
But yes, we still believe that, good things are worth the wait. And really, this is the only way that we can sustainably come out with brand new, fresh, awesome designs really frequently, which is what we really want to do. I'm very passionate about the designs. I'm very passionate about the graphic design aspect of it and just always wanting to come up with awesome, badass shirts that I want to wear. And in order for us to do that, this is a system that works best for us right now to do that. We found a really awesome way to be able to print an individualized sticker for everybody that orders one. So it will have on the packaging. A lot of you guys won't notice this. So if you order it, don't throw out the packaging necessarily because there will be a sticker on there that says basically that it's a certified, genuine article of Iron Apparel, that it was printed for Daniel Humiston or David Humiston. It'll have your name on that and then the date that it was printed. So I don't know if you guys are sentimental.
There's a lot of TLC that goes into your guys' packaging. If you've ordered anything off of our website, you already know that. Like our packaging is awesome. We give you guys all a handwritten
care about
note.
Like every little detail.
Like we individually pack and ship out everything that you order from the website.
Yeah.
So
yes, we write every thank you card ourselves. Yeah. We fold every single shirt. We tag it. We bag it. So we're super passionate about all the little details. So some of you guys, don't really care about that, and it goes right in the trash. But just know that our heart's in everything that comes out of this company.
We care.
And what was the other point that we needed to make about that? I think that was it.
That's it. Yeah.
No, the other point was sizing. So because we're going to print this in a large production run, and then we've got to move on to the next design. It's really important that you order the right size, because if you get the wrong size and it gets to you and it doesn't fit right, the only thing, unfortunately, that we're going to be able to do for you is provide you with a full refund, which we guarantee your satisfaction. So we will refund you fully for your purchase, but we're not going to be able to print up a new one for you and send out a different size. So we've done a really good job of coming up with a really extensive sizing chart on our website for all the products that we sell on our website. So just go to ironapparel.com, click on the sizing tab, and make sure, even if you've got to take a tape measure and measure your arms, measure your chest, whatever you need to do to make sure that you get the right size, please do that so that you're happy with what you get.
Just pay attention and get the right size. They fit pretty standard, honestly.
Everything's true to size. But just double check, make sure. We want you guys to be happy with what you get. So
Yeah, that's a good time to wrap it up, I think.
Yeah.
For those of you that haven't subscribed yet and that watched our last podcast or have watched a couple of our other videos that we released this week, please subscribe to our YouTube. I'm not saying that just so that we can rack up our subscribers, but honestly, if you hit the subscribe button and then hit the little bell button next to it, it will send a notification directly to your phone every single time that we update a video and drop a new video. And we work really hard on these videos, man. Like it takes a full day to do a podcast and edit it, or to do a 1 minute promotional video. You know, we have to film all of the footage and then edit it. And for those of you that saw my post about it, we do it all. We don't have any professionals on a payroll or anything right now helping us editing or helping us film.
Directors, the editors, the videographers.
It's pretty badass, honestly.
It's really fun. We have learned, dude, honestly, like we've learned so much through the software, the cameras, how to film, how to we're by no means experts, but we're learning. So yeah, for sure.
For those of you that don't know, there's a lot that goes into it.
We appreciate every single one of you guys. Really, I mean, what it boils down to is we do need your help to grow this thing organically. Every like, every comment, every time you interact with our brand, it helps us. And we truly do. Some of the best friends that we've made have been through this brand. So we want to connect with you guys. It's awesome. Like some of the people that like I've gotten to know, truly through this brand are like some of who I would call my, better friends nowadays. And so we want to interact with you guys. We want you guys to, be involved with our journey. Like I think about it all the time. Like if I could go back and watch, videos of Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak making the first Apple computers in their garage in a hot, sweaty summer in Southern California, that would be awesome. And to be able to be involved with that journey and following that journey every step of the way, not saying we'll ever be as big as Apple, but our goal is to build a successful, large brand, and a globally recognized brand is our goal. My goal is to build the most meaningful brand in the world. And we want you guys to be a part of that journey. And so, every time you share the video with your friends, or if you think about somebody that would maybe you love the design, make sure if you've got a friend that would also love design, just help us reach as many people as we can possibly reach. We truly appreciate,
and interact with us. Give us your feedback. We actually honestly
we have
value
responded to
your
feedback. I mean, we fixed a couple of things even in this video based off of feedback that we got from the first one and stuff like that. So we're always listening to you guys. We truly take your opinions, and that will help. We will use your feedback to help kind of steer the ship in the right direction and make adjustments as we go. So we love you guys. We appreciate you guys. And until next time, stay sharp and sharpen others.